Winter, 1943. On the frozen banks of the Volga River, a city lies in ruins. This is not just a city. It is a graveyard. The graveyard of an entire army. And the turning point of the Second World War. This is the story of Stalingrad. In 1942, Adolf Hitler's Third Reich seemed invincible in the east. After failing to take Moscow the previous winter, Hitler turned his attention south. The scene transforms. Snow begins to fall heavily. The tanks get stuck and covered in frost, and soldiers are shown struggling against the brutal cold, forcing them into a disorganized retreat. His new plan, Operation Blue, had two main objectives: the rich oil fields of the Caucasus and the industrial city that bore the name of his greatest enemy, Stalingrad. For this offensive, the German Wehrmacht assigned Army Group South. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, supported by thousands of tanks and aircraft, pushed across the Russian steppes during the summer. Stalingrad, a vital center for arms production, stretched for miles along the western bank of the Volga River. Taking it was not just a strategic objective. It was a matter of propaganda and prestige. None of the leaders wanted to quit such a prize. It was a beacon, a trap for the Germans and Russians. In August, the vanguard of the German Sixth Army, commanded by General Friedrich Paulus, reached the outskirts of the city. What followed was one of the most devastating aerial bombardments in history. The Luftwaffe turned Stalingrad into an inferno of fire and smoke, reducing over 80% of the city to rubble. But the Soviets did not retreat. Stalin's order was clear: not one step back. The ruined city, ironically, became the Soviets' best defense. The rubble created a deadly labyrinth, neutralizing the German advantage in tanks and open field tactics. The battle devolved into Rat and Creek, the war of rats. Small teams with little squads fighting, building by building, brick by brick, sometimes for meters to be gained. The fight was for every building, every floor, every cellar. The life expectancy of a new soldier on the front line was measured in hours. Places like the grain elevator, the Mamayev Kurgan, Pavlov's house became symbols of fierce resistance. A handful of Soviet soldiers, led by Sergeant Yakov Pavlov, defended an apartment building for 2 months against relentless German assaults. On German maps, the house was marked as a fortress. While the German Sixth Army slowly bled to death in the ruins of Stalingrad, the Soviet High Command, led by General Georgy Zhukov, was preparing a deadly surprise. Secretly, they gathered over 1 million soldiers. Hundreds of tanks and aircraft on the city's northern and southern flanks. Which were defended by weaker, poorly equipped Romanian and Hungarian troops. On November 19th, 1942, the trap was sprung. Operation Uranus began with a massive artillery barrage that shattered the flank defenses. In a few days, Operation Uranus began with a massive artillery barrage that shattered the flank defenses. Some 300,000 soldiers of the German Sixth Army and its allies were trapped. The hunter had become the hunted. Hitler forbade General Paulus from attempting a breakout, promising that the Luftwaffe would supply the trapped army via an air bridge. The promise was a catastrophic failure. As the Russian winter intensified, the soldiers trapped in the Kessel, or Cauldron, faced starvation, freezing cold, and a lack of ammunition. Hope turned to despair. On January 31st, 1943, without food, without hope, and just promoted to field marshal by Hitler, a reminder that no German field marshal had ever surrendered, Friedrich Paulus capitulated. Of the nearly 300,000 men who were surrounded, only 91,000 survived to become prisoners. Of these, fewer than 6,000 would ever see Germany again. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad was the psychological and strategic turning point of the Second World War on the Eastern Front. For the first time, the Nazi war machine was decisively stopped and annihilated. From that point on, the Red Army would begin the long and bloody march that would end in Berlin. The battle cost over 1 million lives. But in its shattered streets, the fate of the world was rewritten in blood and steel.